Thanks everyone for attending. We're going to go ahead and get started, and as others come on board, we'll follow up with that. The agenda for today is to really just kind of do a quick overview of the survey that was done back in November. The survey was sent out with the announcement for the meeting for today, and then get into at least providing some of the action topics for 2021. And then I would like for Chris or Clifford to kind of share some of the work and efforts that the MBEIC are looking to do from a national standpoint, and then get into a discussion around how do we incorporate that all into the plan for the MBEIC Cincinnati for 2021. So that's some of the thoughts for today. We may not be able to get through all of that, but would certainly want to at least hit on most of those, and then understand, can this be potential topics going to the meeting in February? Maybe some sub-teams will look at what they will need to do to be prepared for the February meeting. Okay. In your documents that you received, you should have seen some of these results that showed up from the survey results, and so it's just going to be a quick overview. It's just giving you a kind of an information in terms of the number of MBEs that the survey was sent to, and then the percent completion, as well as who participated and who didn't participate in terms of just numbers. The next slide is really looking at the list that showed up from the survey based off of those who participated as what they thought was working well. And you can see that from the list here. You know, access to the Zoom calls, the national map-making opportunities, et cetera. You know, having a monthly meeting was working well. Having a scheduled meeting, even to the point I kept this in here of not having interaction with the MBEIC committee, because it might be something that we want to think about as an action step going into February of 2021. So these were the items that showed up in terms of list what is working well. The next slide is really about what are the opportunities for the MBEIC committee meetings. And there were, of the respondents, you know, these were the critical ones that showed up. Need local Zoom to catch up, like hearing success stories and featuring local experts. But there was certainly a lot of comments associated around folks not feeling like that the committee meetings were meeting their needs, and wanting to see more. Then a lot of discussions around, you know, making sure, are we capturing the successes of the past and creating these playbooks for the MBEs, and exposing MBEs to not only local but regional as well as national, and then getting very direct and focused action items to grow the business. Now I'm reading fairly fast, so stop me if you want to hone in on any one of those topics. And then there was just one question around, you know, in addition to what you thought was not working well, or what you thought was working well, you know, provide some other key improvement ideas that we can think about for the Cincinnati MBEIC group. And so these were additional thoughts that came up. Mentoring through partnerships of the large and small firms. And so this is this idea of MBE to MBE collaboration and working together. More opportunity to discuss opportunities for growth, both from a corporate opportunity, but of the MBE to MBE, and then really looking at, you know, how does that fit then with access to capital. Really thinking about how do we do a platform that's across all Ohio, because all Ohio MBEs sometimes need to hear the same thing. But if we could certainly do more outreach as it pertains to webinars and Zoom calls that are reaching all of us versus it just being Cincinnati, especially since we're in this virtual environment. And so these were the ideas that came out in terms of looking at other key ideas for improvement. And these were the last ones that also came out in terms of, you know, other ideas and suggestions of where do we go from here. And they also link back to the other ideas, but really think about how to bring in more guests from state and local government. There's been a cry from MBEs around really understanding more about what's happening from the government, as well as getting opportunities from state and local government entities. More opportunity to share successes from OMSDC networking, and that went back to one of the other ideas of how do we have a, you know, a success story manual where we are presenting and engaging and promoting our MBEs on a frequency, networking with other MBEs and corporates, encouraging, you know, our MBEs who are coming to the MBEIC meetings to bring a guest, and just make that a constant effort, not only at the meeting, as the meeting is over, but throughout the month. Some kind of follow-up with our MBEs to encourage them around, one, coming to the meetings, as well as bringing a guest to the meeting. National outreach, mill market type of company engagement. Again, looking back at the strategic planning and getting people training and education around their financial house and how is that linking to their business. The model, couple of people talked about, you know, what if we did a MBE to MBE teaming as a project and really work through that as a part of the MBEIC group, so that we can learn from that and broaden that, not only from the two that are teaming, but potentially take that into others who are looking at doing some teaming opportunities, because there's opportunities that a corporation or another MBE has brought to the surface. And then again, this whole piece around, we must have more involvement of our corporate members in our meetings as we think about 2021. But when they do come, we want to make sure that they are listing defined potential opportunities and not just sharing, you know, how do you do business with us, but bringing those defined listings and talking about those, whether they're tier 1 opportunities or potential tier 2 opportunities. So with that, that's the essence or the overview of the survey information. And I'll just open it up very quickly to the members and say, are there any questions or clarifications or understanding around the data that was provided from the survey?
Well, good afternoon. This is Tom Randall, and I definitely think this is a good start on a meaningful journey to improvement and also additional opportunities. So I definitely think that we're moving in the right direction. Anxious to see kind of what is the action plan against some of these that are going to require a couple of different streams. One of those streams obviously would be us locally here. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And I'd also be curious to know these MBIC committees are throughout all the councils. So I'd be curious to know how these survey results line up against other councils. You know, what are we on par with and doing well, and where are the opportunities as a total number of councils? And then in my view, based on that outcome, then that could be something that can be elevated even to the national level, because it seems to be something that's happened across all the all the councils. So any thoughts? Is this an undertaking that's taking place with all the councils in terms of surveying?
Well, before hold that point, Tom, because what I want to do next is have Chris come in and just kind of share information around the MBEIC, since he is the since he is our chair on the OMSDC board, and as well as give us a little bit of a background of some work that I know on a national basis that is being executed across all the regional councils, and let Chris talk about that from a monthly and quarterly focus and direction. And then we can take all of that and then plow it into our 2021 action steps with goals and measures as you think about incorporating that with some action plans. So Chris, why don't I let you come in? We've got Christopher Shea, who is our board MBEIC chair. I just also want to recognize Jacqueline O'Neill, who's our president of OMSDC, as well as Lynn Lewis, who is our OMSDC MBEIC program manager, along with other duties that she's currently doing right now, is also on the webinar. So as we get into, looking at action steps, I'm hoping that the two of them will also, as they're working this with Chris, think about what should be the action steps for Cincinnati OMSDC MBEIC for 2021. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
But thank you, IC, and Happy New Year to everyone. We really appreciate the work that you've done along with Carl in Cincinnati to get the Cincinnati MBEIC back on track, and we hope to even grow it better. There's a lot of things going on at the national and at the regional level here to really get MBEIC back on track and really pushing on the growth of MBEs. We are blessed to always have our, I would say, former national chair from Ohio, Clifford Bailey. But again, he's still as active as always at the national level. And then also we are blessed that something which the MBEIC national level, led by Clifford, had been pushing for was to get a director of MBEIC services at the national level. And again, we are blessed that that person we've accomplished that. And again, the MBEIC director, the director of MBEIC services with MSDC is again from Ohio, and no one other than our very own IC Williams, which again, we all consider a legend in this space, and there's nobody better off to bridge that gap between MSDC and the MBEIC. That's the good news. The bad news there is that she may now have to dial back her leadership involvement with the Cincinnati MBEIC, since she's going to be leading us nationally, and we'll be working with Carl to get a replacement for her. But all that said, at the national level, a lot of great things have been accomplished, especially under Clifford's leadership, and I may allow him to share some of those things, which Carlton O'Neill is now the new national MBEIC chair. The focus has really been on making sure that the MBEIC across the country's voice is being heard at national as policies are being made to really focus on the growth of MBEs. We are in business to grow, and of course, capacity building, and also to make sure that education that is being provided to MBEs is meaningful to us, and also recognizing that the MBEs of different levels that need different types of programs. I think the MSDC at the national level, and also with the involvement and leadership of IC right now, is working towards really listening to our voice and accomplishing that. I will be having a meeting with the MBIC vice chairs across Ohio, and I will be sharing a lot more information about the national programs that are going on. I'm still compiling that at this point. But for at the Ohio level, um, we had also pushed last year at the board level to have someone that will represent Cincinnati and Dayton in terms of MBIC services with the council. And we succeeded in getting Lynn Lewis to be hired. Unfortunately, with COVID, things had to be restructured at the council level, and Lynn's time is being pulled into many different directions right now until things are put together. But the objective of bringing Lynn was to allow the council to work with us in Cincinnati and Dayton to be able to reposition the MBEIC to be doing things that are needed to help the Cincinnati Dayton area MBE members. In terms of 2021, I've had meetings with Lynn, Jackie, and Abigail, who is the new board chair. And we have a basic program that is really going to focus on, again, bringing MBEs together, really building a model where MBEs at all levels, in all regions, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Toledo, that the MBEs in these regions really build a level of closeness and trust with each other. And we're following a model that was really built in the days of Carl Satterwhite, Clifford Bailey, and I.C. Williams when she was at Procter & Gamble, where every month the MBEs came together, and that led to a really cohesive relationship and trust among MBEs in Cincinnati. We are going to try to go back and duplicate that model. So what we decided and will be implementing this year is that we're going to go back and implement across the regions the Executive Straight Talk. The Executive Straight Talk was a program that was really just what it said, and where all the MBEs, only CEOs, presidents, and maybe really senior executives would attend the MBEIC meetings every so often, every month. And the main agenda involved the MBEs talking and sharing among themselves what's going on in your life. You know, what challenges are you facing? What do you need help hiring a controller, a salesperson? Did you lose business, or are you trying to access a customer that you cannot access? Who has connections, and so forth? It was very basic, and we spent about an hour going through that. During that period, MBEs in Cincinnati were able to share their challenges and problems that became so intimate. And because they were intimate problems, it led to trust over the years. So we are going back to implement that model, and I'm going to be picking on the brains of Carl and Clifford, who championed it during that period in Cincinnati, and hopefully Lynn in making sure that all the regions, and we're going to mandate a structure that will allow this to happen. That will be every first month of the quarter. And then the second month of the quarter will focus on providing access, where the regional MBEIC vice chairs will schedule a meeting with a corporation of their choice that will come in and talk about the opportunities that exist within their corporations and how MBEs can access them and so forth. And because most of this will be done virtually, it means that we will schedule it so that there's no conflict and can allow MBEs across the state to participate in each one of them throughout the period. And then lastly, on the third month of each quarter, we will implement, we will have webinars or seminars that will be organized by the MBEIC and the council. And again, it will be virtual and everyone will attend. So that every quarter we will cover bringing MBEs together, which can lead to MBEs doing business with one another through trust. Secondly, the second month of every quarter, we will be trying to create opportunities for MBEs by bringing corporations to each of the different regions. And then third, education every third month of the quarter. We will be expanding on these programs more and incorporating them with what National is doing. As you can see, we cover most of the pillars that are necessary. So that's what the vision is in 2021. And I don't know if I missed anything, if Clifford or Jackie or Lynn or Isaac can add if I left anything out.
Hey, Christopher,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, no, thank you for that. It was gratifying to see at least Crystal did a head nod when you talked about Straight Talk, and then maybe some other people hiding behind their icons that were also doing a head nod, because the way you described that, the way that worked for you guys in Cincinnati, it seemed to be very, very powerful. So I appreciate you taking the leadership to bring that back. I want you to know that it is in the plan. And we're going to do everything in our power to help make this happen across the state. It can't be inconsistent because it won't work. It needs to work for all of our MBEs. And I would love to hear from Clifford what happens. I do talk to some of the other presidents and I hear occasionally what happens, but we have got to be a premier council. And that means making sure our MBEs get the help that they need to be top-notch suppliers and make the connections. And this is just one of the many ways that we can do it. So my hat's off to you, Christopher and IC, for your leadership. And of course, Clifford's been representing this council very well in the country. So I'd love to hear what's going on there, but thank you. I think you did a great job in covering it, Christopher.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Christopher is talking, has shared a great deal of information, and I'll work to be concise. But the things that he mentioned is what made Cincinnati a premier market. And I will tell you specifically, one of the core reasons behind that was, and I'm gonna go back in history a little bit, Icy was the chair of the board. Kathy Mock was the president, and I was the MBEIC chair at the time. And it's what we call a three-legged stool. And the leadership was all on one mindset. So Icy, Kathy, and I were always in lockstep. The next piece behind what made Cincinnati great was the fact that we interface with one another, not based upon our positions, but as individuals and how we could help each other achieve our goals. And we put time and energy in to help one another. That's when Cincinnati was singing and companies were growing and the corporations were totally engaged. But the driver behind a lot of this really comes from leadership in corps, but it's also the leadership in our community and how we show up and how we work together and how we're focused on helping one another. And Executive Straight Talk, I created it. Carl made it better, but Crystal took it to another level altogether. That's why she was shaking her head. She was going back to what made the difference, right? And it was Straight Talk. And we had executives coming in, sharing with us specifically what was happening behind the screen, behind the wall, what really transpired and how you really come in and do business with them and providing us with straight talk. And if they were us, what they would be doing. So that was Cincinnati. So let me just say that I carried that same type of attitude to the national office and have pushed. And one of the things that we initially pushed hard for and have been for 10 years was to get a representative in the corporate office for we MBEs. So before I left my last year, we got that position, and holding that position is somebody we respect and trust, period, out of Cincinnati is Icy. And Icy's coming in and she's shaking things up, and she's gonna shake them and break them where they need to be and put them back together to make them better than they ever were before.
Right.
So, and she and I've had that dialogue around that. But here in Cincinnati, here's what's happening on a national basis. Same things, the core pieces, which is access to opportunity, access to capital, and capacity building. That's what's happening on a national level. Now, let me tell you how we've taken that. In February of last year, had another idea that I've been pushing for years and decided I was going to do it on my own. And out of that came in New Orleans at a network leadership meeting, which is a national meeting, was that out of the 31 MBEIC chairs, 20 showed up for the meeting a day ahead. We facilitated a meeting which was focused on us doing business together. Out of those 20 companies, within 90 days, 120 days, 16 of us was doing business with each other. And it just basically came down to communicating what our needs were and who had the capability within the room to get it done. Now, let me go back over 15 years ago. We did the same thing in Dayton at Standard Register, focused on $1 billion spend. Corporations and MBEs all in one room. We came out with a plan. We achieved that in 18 months. Here's my bigger point. If we come back together, working together, we will win together. But if we keep waiting for this organization to do something for us that we can do for ourselves, then it's going to keep trickling as it has been. The greatest benefit that OMSDC offers and the national office is their conveners. And as a result of being conveners, we get to know one another and interface with one another and add value to this organization because we know it can meet our needs as well as the corporate needs. We have to get involved and engaged more so than we have been. That's what I'm telling every council, and those who get involved reap the benefits of it. Enough said on my part. Back to you, Icy.
Thanks, Clifford. And Jackie.
Excuse
I
me.
should have said back to you, Chris.
That's right.
Icy, you on mute.
I'm giving it right back to Icy. I think we've covered everything. If there are any questions from anyone, I'm sure they'll channel it accordingly.
This is Tom Randall again. That's great news to hear, and I agree with the move to IC, and the value add that she will bring is just going to be tremendous. So I think that's an outstanding move. Secondarily, these virtual communications to begin to kind of understand, give the Ohio Council the opportunity to kind of share the vision and bring people on board, I think is really great. I would also add that I was thinking about the common language right now going on in the marketplace right now with these social and economic injustices that we're facing, is that if you follow the old Miller time theme, we need to embrace the theme, it's equity time. And what that means to me is that there's a lot of talk going on out there about what we're going to do now, just like it was in the 60s. So this is, I agree, there's some value and benefit in coming together as groups, as MBEs, yeah. But I think the bigger opportunity than that is to start to hold these corporations accountable that said, hey, you know what, we're right. We could have done better with advertising. We could have been better with spend. And it's out there all over the media. They're saying it. We don't need to go find it. They're saying we haven't done well and we want to do better. It's everywhere. So all we got to do is capture that information saying, okay, isn't this what you said you're going to do? Well, let's see what we can do to make that happen. I'm not too much in favor of hearing anymore how to do business, because conceptually, or it's really no different doing business with Kroger than it is with P&G as far as supplier diversity goes. So what I'm more interested in, I think IC hit on it earlier, is what are you buying? What are you buying today? I'll leave you with one other thought. I was at an MSDC meeting. I was walking around the floor. I ran into Veronica Emanuel Gilbert, and she's not in supplier diversity anymore. And I said, what are you doing? I think she was with Johnson & Johnson. I said, what are you doing? And she says, oh, I'm walking around trying to find people to do business with, because the people that are coming to my booth aren't the ones I want to do business with. And then that's when I learned the term opportunity gap or unmet need. Because what she said is, the people that are coming to my booth are not meeting my needs or understanding my opportunity gap. So I think our opportunity is to when we're having these meetings, whatever, when executives are coming in talking, what are your opportunity? What are your opportunity gaps? What are your unmet needs? And then to me, it would also seem like if that unmet need is widgets or distribution system, then a supplier can come to the party. And I think this is what Clifford was saying earlier, that we can come together to fulfill that particular need. But there's not going to be much traction, in my view, until we understand what the corporate unmet needs or opportunity gaps are, be clear about that, and then find the resources to help meet that need. Finally, that might also include going out recruiting people that aren't currently members of the council, with the whole, key takeaway or feature benefit is, hey, look, joining the council, we got folks that are looking for your service. Then that becomes an added benefit to me.
So let me just add this to what it referenced a little bit of what Tom is getting into, but from a national standpoint, as I come on board, and part of the transition is really looking at processes and systems that are currently in the MBE services area, which also includes Corporate Plus. But it's really also about putting tracking and measuring systems in so that we are starting to track and measure outcomes of the work that we're doing. I'll be very clear with you. There's a lot of activities that are going on, whether it's regional or whether it's national. And the question that we have to step back, all of us have to step back and say is, are we measuring the success and the outcomes of this? And it's all to be pointed back to the strategy that Clifford talked about, which is capacity building, growth, and access to capital. If we're not tracking and measuring that, we can talk about it all day, but we never understand the true numbers that go behind that. So with that, there's actions work that's in place to start really getting back to some of this tracking and measuring. Corporations spend with MBEs, as well as looking at Corporate Plus spend with MBEs. We'll also look at MBE to MBE spend and track and measure that both on a regional level as well as on a national level, so that we can, as programs are being put into place, we then are matching it up with not only the needs of the corporations, but also the growth and capacity building that an MBE is looking for, whether that's in class 1 or class 2, class 3 or class 4. So the big idea, along with what Chris and Clifford is talking about, is putting measures and goals and measures in place, and then what are the tracking mechanism that we can really go back and take a look at and see how well they are being done.
I see. Oh.
So let me open it back up to others who might have some questions or input what I would say is that as you're talking this, think about what Chris has said as how he wants to set up the MBE meetings on a monthly and quarterly basis. Determine with OMSDC, how are you going to get this into a plan that really puts some action steps behind it and accountability steps behind it? And how are you tracking and measuring it as you go from month to month for the MBEIC? Okay. So some people raised their hands. So there was, okay, Crystal?
I have two things actually. Before I forget, I will say this. As our new MBEIC chair, one thing that I would like the council, nationally and local, to consider is publicizing the list of MBEs. This is the #1 search on my website, and a top search, so much so that Google identifies Black-owned businesses, Yelp identifies Black-owned businesses, Facebook identifies Black-owned businesses. People are looking for us. All of these other systems are self-reporting. So we have found quite a bit of fraud in this because people who are Black are not Black-owned, but they have a Black salesperson or Black serving or Black in a Black neighborhood want to put this on there, and there's no verification for that. But having a public list of certified Black-owned businesses would mean the world to our organizations, because people would be able to search and find us. Those who want to be public, we can make that option to be there, but you have the most robust list, and that is a top search. And you can even look at what Google put out for their top searches for 2020, and Black-owned businesses were there. And we are allowing the Voice of Black Cincinnati and all of these other places to publish these lists on our behalf, which we know are not accurate. So that's just a thought. I know that the list has been private for years for whatever reason, but at this point, in order for us to do business, especially, I'm gonna talk tier 1, I can't talk about anybody else, but for us to be tier 1, being able to be found is a big deal. And I know there are people on this call who have received, tier 4 people who have received important telephone calls because they were listed on my website. And that shouldn't be the case. So I just encourage us to really look at that model. And that could be the biggest thing that you can do for tier 1 businesses. I'll say that, I'll let tier 2, 3, or 4 speak for themselves. But for tier 1 businesses to be able to be out there, and more importantly, for us to be viable subcontractors so that we can partner with people to grow. So that was my thought. But my real point of asking for a moment to talk was just to really give people who did not attend Executive Straight Talk an idea of some of the things that we did. And I know for sure that it was Executive Straight Talk that enabled my company to win the National MBE of the Year Award in 2009. In fact, so much so, and Cliff will remember this, that when, and Christopher will too, when I accepted my award, the first thing I did was ask every person in the audience from South Central at the time to stand up, because this was all of our award. And that's how meaningful it was. You know, we talked, what I loved about it was the sessions were geared, they were impactful to everyone from a $250,000 per year tier 1 customer to our $60 million per year customers. The topics were so relevant for every one of us. No matter who we were, the topics were relevant. We talked about, you know, kind of how to do our work. It wasn't sales pitches. You know, many times these webinars that we have is somebody selling their service and talking, you know, basically telling you what they do and how much it costs. But these Executive Straight Talks were people giving us real examples of how to do our work. And one of the best sessions we ever had was when Christopher and his team came and told us how to go to a conference. Do you remember that, Christopher?
So,
Yes, I do.
So one of the things, Crystal, is as Chris has indicated, and I think you're absolutely right on, and I know Carl has talked about this many, many times, and it's also on the national level as well, is how do we advertise and how do we promote our certified MBEs? And so this whole thing around success stories, and so that's a conversation that I think Chris and you all ought to be having back with OMSDC and you know, from a regional basis, because I know that's a topic that is also being discussed at national right now, is how do we look at success of our MBEs and get this, because we ought to be promoting our MBEs just like we're promoting everybody else. And so how do we do that? I don't know about the list, okay? I don't know about advertising the list, but that could be a topic or a discussion that you all could be having at one of the MBEIC meetings, and then taking that back to your regional council, taking that back to Jackie, putting it on the agenda and understanding how do you all, what is the marketing and advertising that goes in for MBEs from the Ohio region?
Hey,
Crystal,
I see. Can I ask you a question?
Let me interject real quick. Let me share. Crystal, first and foremost, around getting to see us as MBEs and accessing us has been a driver I've had on the national level as well as in Ohio. So this goes back, as you well know,
Yes.
many, many years.
Many years.
The fortunate part is that I finally made a breakthrough as my term ends. So what will be occurring in the next few weeks, each of you will be getting an email basically saying you can access the MSDC's database to find MBEs. And it will get better, okay? And so it won't be a formalized list like that. So that's one thing that we've made progress in. That is taking forever, but we're now here. That's one thing. Second thing is back to my point about asking the organization to do something that we can do for ourselves. Now, it's a number of people will tell you some of the things I've done on the national level, I just went and did it. We, the MBEs, went and did it. First one is the National MBE Input Committee website. We asked National for years. They didn't do it. We went and did it ourselves. We asked to create an event like the Opportunity Accelerator that happens at the national level. They didn't do it. We went and did it ourselves. My point is, as long as we're doing things that add value to the NMSDC, I don't see them objecting, right? So my point here is we can do something right here, starting in Cincinnati, get Columbus involved, get Cleveland, get Toledo, get all the MBEs, and we can build that list that you're talking about, right?
Oh,
And
I just want to encourage, I mean, I think Lynn is still on the line, and I know Jackie is still on the line, but all of these ideas that are coming up ought to be and included in the work that Chris is already talking about, what the MBEIC is going to be doing in connection with Ohio Minority Supply Development Council, because that's a team, okay? That's a team that's going to be looking at how do we promote, how do we grow, how do we build capacity and capability within our MBEs into 2021. Make sure that these thoughts are put into the action steps. And then you're putting measuring tools in place to track and measure your success.
Hey, I see, can you hear me? I'm getting some feedback. And George can tell you more about this too, George and Lynn, because they helped really drive and create the plan. But we talked a lot about that. We took those words to heart, the comments that you all made in that Carl made over and over again about the PR. We don't do a great job of telling our story. And that gets back to what you were saying, Crystal. How do we promote more of what we're doing, what's happening, who's out there, et cetera? So we have built some of those things in plan. The board hasn't even seen the plan yet. So after it has been approved, I'd be more than happy to share with you some more of the specifics and the details. But we did take that into consideration. Always welcome more input if there's a different, better way we can do it, for sure. But we are listening, and we are trying to make sure that we incorporate that. I would also say, and maybe I see you can address this in your role at national, the MBE to MBE tool. A lot of the presidents have given national some feedback on how that tool can be improved. It wasn't done in the past, but I'm hoping that maybe in your role you can help that become a more vibrant, useful tool, so it can benefit the MBEs.
Yes, I'm on the committee, at least providing some input, but Clifford, and Carlton have been actively involved in that and working through that from a MBE to MBE tool that really looks at that. So most of the work was already done before I came on board. So I'm just really learning and gaining perspective. And I know after the enhancement piece comes through, there is more work to be done. So but the big thing, you know, I really want us, you know, because I'm gonna have a hard stop at 2 o'clock. But the thing coming out of this today is whoever is going to then look at the MBE plan that links to the Ohio Minority Supply Development Strategy. And I've heard this three-legged stool being talked, is really, what is your tracking systems that you're putting in place to understand, is there success? Can you measure your success based off of the activities that you put into place? So these quarterly meetings that Chris talked about, these bringing corporations in, you know, the work that Clifford talked about, MBEs to MBE, engaging and interacting. How will you be tracking and measuring that so that you can understand, are you successful or not? And then as you do your quarterly reviews, then are you looking at your gap analysis and then adding to that to ensure that the next quarter you're seeing the results happen the way you want to have them happen?
Yeah, I see. This is Chris. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you guys
What was that again?
hear me?
Chris?
Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I've had, in fact, even today, Jackie, I had a call with Al Wolford in Dayton, who is an influential figure in the Dayton area, trying to start to position us. And I'm going to be calling a meeting with Abigail, the chair, and Jackie and myself, and Al and Belinda Stenson, to again try to figure out how we can get Dayton engaged. But the one thing that I want to emphasize, Jackie, is that I had a meeting last week with Abigail, and one of the things that I'm really pushing for, I'm still pushing for, I want us to own Lynn, okay? Because Lynn came into place, given that we are a bigger state, I think the MBE, I mean the director of MBE services in the various regions is critical to this agenda being accomplished. Just like I talk about IC and Clifford and Carl as legends in this thing. The one other legend that I always mention, I think you've all heard, that is Crystal Davis. This, and I'm sure, Crystal, you can remember Crystal Davis?
Oh, yes, of course.
Of course, and this was the engine that was behind this team. You know, we are all business people with very limited time, limited resources, that in the room as we champion these things, there has to be someone behind us from the council that is putting this together and carrying all the things that IC just mentioned and so forth. Ohio is a large state. I don't expect Lynn to become the guru across the whole state. Maybe with the virtual now that might work. But I guess the point I'm making is that we're only going to succeed in this if there is the resource committed by the council. And that's why, Jackie, I talked to Abigail about it, because I know that you need that support to make sure that resource is available. Lynn is being pulled in a lot of different directions, not anybody's fault, but is the way that things are today. But I think to commit to this agenda requires a very strong administrative and strategic support from the council, because the MBEIC vice chairs can only commit so much, and the planning, gathering, follow-ups of this meeting, that's the role that the council has to play. So we will be working behind the scenes to make sure that we'll find ways to make these resources available, because without those resources, everything we say here will just become a beautiful constitution that will not be executed.
Yeah, I see. This is Uche. Congratulations on your role. I just want to add one thing in terms of the action plan that I think is critical. I commend you. I know it's frustrating for the survey to have that very little response. Looking at the voice of the customers, so the action plan, we have to find a way to hear from the customers. What are their real needs? You see, we have to find a way to incorporate them in this action plan. That's the only way we can gain alignment. And to the point that Chris just made about resources to deploy this initiative, if we have alignment, we have enough capacity within even the MBE, to support some of these things. But we cannot do that when we don't have, a simple survey. Maybe folks did not understand the objective of the survey. Now we have an outlook, a framework for 2021. Maybe we use that framework to try to re-engage them, because getting the customers in play will give us the momentum and the excitement, to do the things we are doing. Right now, without participation, getting the customers, I think that's a critical piece. We need to find a way to solve that problem.
Can I make a comment? I am very excited about what I'm hearing from Chris and Clifford. 10, 11 years ago, these meetings, they were dynamic. They
Right.
helped me as a young company and still a young company. And it's the starting point, I believe. I'm really excited about where this is going, because if we're going to build the network in Cincinnati, we need to know each other. We need to know that we can come to this place, and we get excited about that. We invite those people in. And as being in the room with the powerhouses that you guys are, that's attractive enough. And then it's, how did you get successful? And knowing that you care, and knowing that we can come to you guys and whatever the case may be and say, this is the issue that my business is having, and getting real-time help, real-time answers, getting to know each other so we can collaborate. People are going to do business with who they know, trust, and and you can't know them, you can't trust them if you're not coming together, and if you don't have a place to come together and feel comfortable to share and say, this is where I need help, or this is my strength, or this is my vision, or this is whatever the case may be. And I'm hurrying up and talk because I know you got a hard stop at 2. But all I'm saying is, I think that this is awesome. And this is where it needs to begin, to strengthen the individual communities, Cincinnati, Dayton, Cleveland, what have you, so that we can be strengthened as a unit together, so we can begin to do business. And then the other things will come into place, the growth, getting to corporate. But we've got to get it together as individual companies first and show that we can work together and there's strength. And this is how we build our capacity to strengthen the whole minority community, work community as a whole. So hopefully all that made sense with me trying to hurry up, because I wanted to get that in before 2 o'clock. But I think that this is awesome. I know the benefit of it. It was worth my time to go to those. I think they were on Fridays for an hour, and it was phenomenal. It helped me. It made me, feel like I was a part of a community, and I had a sense of support from other business owners. And I think that's missing. And getting back to that is the first step to growing to the other things that you guys want to establish. So that's my 2 cents.
So Chris, before I jump off, and I know Lynn and Jackie are still on here, as a next step, how are you planning to capture all of this that was done here today so that you can take it into your MBEIC conversations with Jackie and Lynn and whoever else, and then think about that for your next meeting?
Well, I think we have a meeting coming up. I think it's next week, the next week or so. I'm going to use some of what we've discussed here to enhance that agenda. And then again, get all the MBEIC vice chairs engaged on it, and we'll come up with a unified plan.
Okay.
Jackie and Lynn will be available on that call. So I look forward to coming out and implementing. The implementation will start right away because we have to catch up in January. We're still probably going to have our first executive straight talk across the state this month. You know, it may be rushed, but I would still want to get it started this month.
Okay. And I am still available for input, you know, but based upon of my new role, I have to be cautious about conflict of interest. Okay. And how much time I spend with Cincinnati versus on a national basis. So
We don't have a problem with you spending much time in Cincinnati.
but any of these notes, Chris, that you would like to have, or any documents that I have, you know, typed up, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Okay.
If you have anything to send to me, please just go ahead and do it, and that will be good. And I'll be meeting with Carl to discuss about your hopefully searching for someone else to come and take over from you to support Carl in the Cincinnati area. So anyone on the line who is interested in that may want to give Carl a call because he's the MBEs Vice Chair for Cincinnati.
Mhm.
So it's not my role to make that decision. He will be making that decision too. Solicit. So I'm just going to be a catalyst in making sure that there's someone in place to replace IC, and then work with IC to carry on the agenda that she has beautifully put together. We're going to miss.
Okay, if you all want to continue, I just have to hop off. And so, Chris, if you want to take it further than this, that's your call.
I'm actually out of
and so
time.
I'm giving it back to Lynn and
Okay.
Jackie. Okay. But I do have to leave right now. Okay.
Me too. I have to exit as well. But we'll be following up Jackie and Lynn, and thanks to everybody. I like the passion that I've seen, and that's where it starts. And we're going to make sure those good old days come back to also help the newer businesses here.
And congratulations, everyone, into 2021. Great seeing all of you, and I wish the best. And you know, my heart is always in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Okay.
I do have an announcement I want to make aware of.
Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Funds. There's going to be a special Zoom meeting for everyone that's interested in the next round of the funds. The informational meeting is going to be held by the Cincinnati Integration Alliance. In the chat, the very first entry in the chat is the email address that you want to email to RSVP to attend this webinar. It's limited to 100 people. So if you think you're interested in learning about the next round of the PPP funds, you want to make sure that you RSVP your interest to that email address, and then they will send you a link to the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Everyone hear me on that? There was also a informational email sent out from the council for that as well. So you can either check your most recent information from OMSDC, because there was a separate informational constant contact that was sent out, but then I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware also on this call today about that opportunity. Any questions? No questions? Okay.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you guys' time and attention, and we wish you well. Let us know if we can be of any help. But we definitely need somebody to step in icy shoes. Not an easy task, but we want to keep this going. So, but it's going to take all of us. So it is definitely a collective effort to get this all done, because this is really important work, and that's why we're here. So we're here to serve, we're here to help. So by all means, let us know what you need. Okay.
Hey, Jackie, before we go, what's that need to fill? Like, what's a time commitment and whatnot as we look for people who might be a good fit to replace IC in that role?
Well, I mean, you saw firsthand what she does. I mean, it does take some time to coordinate the meetings and reach out and try to get speakers. And now that Christopher Che has set up the cadence and how it's going to work on a quarterly basis, somebody's got to be able to pull together those speakers, work with us, and find people to come out and meet outside of the straight talk sessions. Somebody's got to be able to lead those straight talk sessions so that they're productive. You know, Crystal sounds like she was the innovator of it and on the ground floor, so she could probably help. And anything else that might come up. So it can, you know, it can take some time. We will do whatever we can on our end, but it really does come from, I think it's the leadership has to come out from the MBEs there in Cincinnati, just like Clifford said. So so if you have any names or recommendations or anybody who would be interested, and maybe 2 people, that's what we have in the Columbus region. We now have 2, Lucretia, I think she's jumped off the call now, but Lucretia Williams and Carlton Dean are co-leading that. So it takes some of the pressure off of one person always being responsible and being available. So totally open to that model as well. So does that help, Lawrence?
Yeah, Lawrence.
It does, thank you.
Lawrence, this is George. I think there's also an opportunity to do the model that Columbus is doing is one, but also what we can do is go in and form like a steering team where we can go in and take different portions and have leadership for different portions. That way nobody's getting overloaded. It's kind of like the picture that said it ain't heavy if everybody takes a part, right? So I think we can do it differently than putting it all on one person. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to, first of all, thank to be on this call. I'm an old face in Cincinnati. I've been a member of the council since 2005, I believe. So I haven't been active for all that time, but I finally got the business to a place where I'm ready to step up. So I'm more than willing. I like that last concept where if several of us to get together, the load is much heavier. So I just want to say hello to some hello to the new faces and hello to the folks that know me on the call. So Emmett Drain with Diversified Facility Solutions.
Great, thanks, Emmett. Good to see you. So that's up for you guys. However you want to structure yourselves, it's got to work for you. So we're here to support and serve. Okay.
Well, Jackie, I think it was something that I think Tom said or somebody said. In the meeting that you and Lynn have with Christopher, it would be helpful if actually Columbus and others go in and do a survey also, so we can at least understand what's going on for them. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, we started with that. I know you sent out the survey that OMSDC did, and we looked at that with the plan. We looked at what came back from this one, but I think it would help to hear from the other regions. So maybe that's something you guys can recommend to Christopher, so we don't lose it.
And all the vice chairs will be in that session. So Carlton Dean, Lucretia, Milton, McIntyre, and Toledo. Hopefully Icy will still be able to attend. So yeah, it's a good idea, George. Make it consistent so we can do some benchmarking too.
I just want to make a comment. Jimmy Jackson from Riskversity, one of the newer faces to the group. Hi, I am by no means ready to fill Icy's shoes, but I am available, you know, to use my energy and effort as being one of the new faces in the group to provide some quarter assistance or something. And if we can figure out how we want to move forward as a collective, you know, in that role, or having a number of people who share that responsibility.
That's great. That is great. So, however you guys want to organize yourselves, again, that's up to you. Just let us know. Again, we're here to support, and Lynn will be there to help you in any way that we can. So keep us posted, okay?
Great.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Good to see you guys. Take care. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.